Workshop. So in this series, you're going to get a preview of what Debra Taylor, the leader of the workshop, will be teaching in the workshop itself and how it can help you better serve your clients and gain new ones by working smarter and not harder. So if you want to go ahead and learn more about this 4-day virtual workshop, which is spread out between July 11th, July 18th, and the 25th, and then August 1st, you can go to horsesmouth.com/BBBW23. And I'll go ahead and put the link to that in the chat for those of you joining us in Zoom. And for those of you watching on the stream, you can find it in the description beneath the video player. So today we're going to be taking a look at day one of the workshop, which includes the sessions growth and profitability trends and know your why. And to kick things off, I'll hand things over to Horse's Mouth Editor-in-Chief, Sean Bailey.
Thanks, Doug. Hi, everyone out there. Debbie, hello. Good to see you again. Yeah, so we got the Build a Better Business Workshop, July 11th, 18th, 25th, and August 1st. You know, I love your new 4-day format because it's actually 4-week format, 1 day a week for 3 hours. And, you know, we've settled on this, and I think, you know, people are happy with it because, listen, there's a lot of stuff. You open up your book, you really take a deep dive, lead the class into all the nooks and crannies of everything you've developed to run your, you know, usually successful business. And, you know, to get that for 3 hours a day, 4 days in a row can be pretty staggering. And so, you know, spreading it out once a week for 3 hours gives people a chance to kind of take on the information, metabolize it, share it with their staff, think about it some more, and then come back with some good questions too a week later. So now I'm really pleased with how that's working, Debbie. So, but you know, in your first session, you're going to talk about growth and profitability trends.
Like,
the probability of profitability.
Yeah, I'm not a math or physics instructor, but that's okay.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, I think that's you know, in the first part of that session, you talk about the you know, foundations for sustainable growth. That is a problem, right? You know, we see it. You know, I've been in this business 22 years, and you know, people go through these feast and famine periods where they find something, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, they stop doing it. You know, it's just not a smooth, there's not a smooth Jack Welch kind of line of, you know, revenue growth and profit. Of course, we know that that turned out to be, you know, a little shady too. Sorry for any of you cult members of the Jack Welch type. But anyway, it's a challenge, right? It's definitely a challenge. And you want to talk a little bit about, yeah, maybe your own experience and why it's so important and why you lead off with this particular issue in the first session.
Yeah, so the early chapters in day one, but particularly the earlier part of day one, is so important to, you know, essentially setting this foundation. And one of the things that I find is that we're very siloed. So you're in your office with your assistant or your 1 or 2 junior advisors or whatever you're doing, and you're getting up every day and you're just sort of going into autopilot, doing your thing, making your appointments, following up, doing some marketing, you know, whatever it is that you're doing. And so the first thing I wanted us to do is take a step back and get some of the data, get the research, get the studies, and understand what is going on in the profession, what the trends are, what our peers are doing, what the competitive landscape is like. And so one of the first things we do is we go through the Schwab benchmarking study. And I believe that of a lot of the studies that I've seen, and I read everything I can get my hands on, I think the Schwab benchmarking study is probably one of the best at looking at successful RIA practices and identifying their approach, their strategies, and looking at it in a number of ways. So a lot of times you'll see a study and you'll see like T3 and they focus on technology. And by the way, we look at that study as well. Or you'll see, you know, some other group and they'll do a study, but they're focusing on like marketing practices or what a client wants. And what Schwab has done such a nice job of is really looking at it from all of these perspectives and pulling it together. And so that's one of the things we do right out of the box, because I want to set the standards and I want to set them high. And I want to start planting the seeds right away of these are the things we need to be thinking about. These are the things we need to be doing. And then over those 4 days, those 4 sessions, then we come back and touch on, implementation and those things.
Right. Good. 1 second. I'm going to have to close my door. I'm going to the dog.
Is that Ziggy the dog?
Ziggy the dog.
And why is Ziggy not with us? We can learn from Ziggy.
Ziggy, yes, the director of Barkington. So, important issue to lead off with. But then, I think what's so important for people to understand is like, okay, well, you're setting the table. Those are kind of big picture things that obviously relate, to them. And by the way, when the markets aren't going so well, we're seeing a lot of studies that show that, growth without the Fed keeping the punch bowl filled, it's a lot harder for advisors to make that profit year in and year out. We've seen some industry growth numbers that last couple of years really kind of very, very modest, shall we say. And so
the market has propelled growth for a lot of practices over the last few years, last year notwithstanding. And there is sort of a false sense of complacency then. And so what we want to do then is really focus on two things, right? Is yes, when the market is the wind behind us, absolutely want to take advantage of that. But our practice has got to grow, regardless of what the market does. And by the way, that's a lot harder than it sounds, because a lot of folks don't even look at the numbers to realize that right off the top, when you have RMDs coming out of your practice and you have regular withdrawal rates for clients, I'm not even talking about losing clients yet. I'm talking about your existing clients who are doing gifting, spending, and RMDs. That's a big chunk that is coming out every year, particularly as our clients age. And so right away on day one, you have a significant headwind that you need to overcome just to get to zero. And I mean, we have that at Taylor Financial Group. I mean, just to get to zero, I've got to pull in, I don't know, I think it's about $12 million a year just to be at zero because of those withdrawals. And I'm not even factoring losing clients.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a big challenge. So, after you have your opening session, you kind of then move into creating accountability, and you're really getting to the nitty gritty here about meetings, procedures, and workflow. Why don't you explain a little bit about why is it so important that you're going to spend time on those issues?
Because the bottom line is you cannot scale your practice and you cannot deliver consistent quality unless you have processes and checklists built out in the practice. And it's a total pain. You're going to have to do some of that work. Your team might have to do some of that work to build those out. There's often a lot of resistance, but otherwise your life is Groundhog Day, right? Every day you're saying to your junior person, hey, did you remember to send out this thank you note? Hey, did you remember to send out the welcome gift? You can't have every day be Groundhog Day. And the way you prevent that is by having the processes. Otherwise, one of two things are going to happen. Quality is going to suffer because you're going to forget to do the things you need to do, or you're just going to drive yourself crazy. And none of those is really a good result.
Yeah, definitely. So, another aspect of that is really, in addition to the procedures, the workflow, the systems, the checklists, and all that sort of stuff, it's like, that also has to happen in the context of, sort of bigger strategy. Again, so it's not Groundhog Day. So you're really thinking about, a business plan with a slightly longer view than the next 48 hours. So can you talk a little bit about, where the business planning comes in and to what degree you really go after that in the workshop?
Yeah. And to me, this is interesting, and particularly the evolution of this. So years ago, you'd be like, oh, business plan, KPI, metrics. And sometimes a business plan can literally be one page. I mean, I've seen formats for that, and we include that in the workbook. And then I've seen business plans, including horse's mouth, that are a lot more detailed. Break it down month by month, week by week, personal goals, business goals. And there's no right or wrong, right? So part of it is what speaks to you and what's going to be most usable to you and your team. So for years, it was like, you need to have a business plan because I don't know if it was one of those Yogi Bear expressions like, without a goal, anywhere you go is fine, or, one of those types of things, right? We have to have an idea of where we're trying to go, right? But what's so fascinating to me now is within the last couple of years, creating a vision for your practice and making this beyond, for people who this makes sense for, a lifestyle practice, or considering your metrics now helps to build enterprise value. And so then for your succession strategy or your exit planning, whatever you want to call it, it literally can amount to millions of dollars if you create your practice, design your practice in the right way. And so for years, you'd see people basically driving their practice into the ground, and their book would slowly atrophy into their 60s, 70s, 80s, whatever. And you'd sit there and you'd scratch your head and you'd say, that's not right. This guy's checked out. He's playing golf 3 times a week. His book isn't growing. Why does he just sell it? Well, it was actually a very smart economic decision to drive the book into the ground and not sell the book. Because for years, we did not get the value on these practices. And it always bothered me. It never made sense to me that you'd get 2 to 3 times revenue for a practice that has like 95% recurring revenue. I mean, think about it. What business out there would only command 2 to 3 times revenue when revenue was recurring at 97%, 95%, whatever? And by the way, there's also essentially an inflation rider built in. Think about it, because the market is positive in 4 out of every 5 years. So you essentially have an inflation adjusted, guaranteed revenue stream. Why am I only getting 2 to 3 times revenue for that? Never made sense. Didn't make sense to a lot of my predecessors, which is why they never formally sold their practice. It was more profitable for them to run the book into the ground, maybe lose 10% of their clients every year, still more profitable that way over that last decade or so. Now, for the first time, because private equity has entered into our world, they figured out how profitable it is. There's all this PE money chasing our practices. And by the way, could be big practices and actually can be smaller practices. There are things that we can do at every single level to maximize the enterprise value so that you can get what you actually deserve for your lifetime of work. It's fascinating. It's unbelievable. So we do get into that a little bit as well.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you're mentioning that because, this really isn't about necessarily somebody new in the business coming to this workshop and benefiting from it. You can be new in the business, you can be mid-career, you can be, looking at your exit plan, and there's still things you can do over the next few years that can deliver ROI for you when it comes to that enterprise value and what you get for it. So
I do want to address that, if you don't mind. Sure. Is because I'm very sensitive that in this workshop, we have all different levels of AUM, of experience in the business, even their level of dedication to the business, right? Some people will write in the chat or talk and say, Debbie, you never sleep. That's just, maybe not my vibe. I mean, they don't say it like that, but I get the hint. And I'm not here to tell you that you need to be Debbie Taylor. I'm not here to tell you that you need to work on Friday nights or build your practice the way I did. I'm here, though, to help you determine what the best practice is for you, and then help you build that in the most sustainable and most profitable way possible. Having said that, when we do talk about enterprise value, my approach to this is everybody wins from this conversation. Because if you're in that last decade or so, then you're like, hey, let's get the house in order so we can maximize value, right? If you're in those middle years, like your 40s or 50s, and it's like, okay, you've got some nice runway here. Let's figure out what you want to do with this, and let's prepare. And then if you're in your 20s or 30s and literally just starting out, this is like, wow, this is Ghost of Christmas Future. This is an opportunity for you to build your practice the right way so that you're not sitting here in your 40s and 50s regretting that you made certain decisions, that you didn't invest properly, and now you're essentially shortchanging yourself. So to me, like wherever you are, you're going to win from a workshop like this.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you spent a little extra time on that because, again, also the other aspect of it is thinking about it in a different way with a different metaphor. It's kind of like a 4-week-long smorgasbord. You come in once a week, and Debbie, sets the table. You can taste a little bit of this. You can take some helpings of that. You can say, no, that's not for me. But the overall experience is, we've seen it time and time again, is hugely powerful for the advisors who choose to, spend that time with you during the 4 weeks. So in the second portion of your day one is about know your why. And that has to do with firm values and purpose and mission statements and that sort of stuff. What's going on there? Why is that important?
Well, this is our life's work, Sean, and a lot of us are spending more time at the office than we are at home, or more time with our team. And I think it's important that we take a step back and sort of ask some of these questions, right? Is why are we here? Who are we trying to help? How are we trying to help them? What's our mission? What's our purpose? And I think life is so busy that we just go into autopilot and we don't ask ourselves those questions. And I'm not asking them here so I can be like a therapist or be all introspective. It's actually very practical, because whatever your why is, whatever your purpose is, whatever your mission is, that will then translate into your target market, into who your niche is, how you're trying to service them, what your approach talk is, how you describe yourself, your marketing, your messaging. So it's very, very practical ultimately, but I feel like we don't take enough time to really challenge ourselves. And so then we've got this hodgepodge of marketing, some mixed message. Maybe it's not so powerful. Maybe it looks like everybody else's, because we really never took the time to ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Like, what are we all about? So we do spend a little bit of time on that, but then, quickly pivot to the practical part of it.
One of the things I like about this second session is you spend some time examining the whole idea of, having a niche within your practice. And this is a topic that, I've seen over the years. Yeah, some advisors can really get hung up on it, like, oh, but a niche, I have a niche. What's going to happen to my other clients? They're going to think I'm not in love with them anymore. They're not going to come, or something like that. And of course, you have fashioned your firm partly around a women's niche, which I think, some people would say, well, it is not a niche anyway.
I know.
But it's a specialty, whatever. I mean, we don't necessarily need to, follow the Harvard Business Review definition of what exactly a niche is to understand that nonetheless, it's like a subsegment of your target market or your client base that you have special expertise with and are able to go after that. But anyway, you're going to be discussing that. So hit us up with a little bit of insight on the niche thing.
Yeah. So look, I struggled with this also, like so many advisors. If I am too transparent, going after women or whatever, going after pet owners, right? Whatever, then I might repel others and that might hurt me. And I struggled with that for years. And then, really just within the last year or so, my practice has grown to a certain size. I've developed a certain amount of confidence. And I'm like, hey, if I'm going to keep doing this, I need to do this in a way that I really love it. And so I decided to go all in on the woman niche, sort of ironic, right? And I have to tell you, I'm loving it. Okay. So yesterday, for example, we're having monthly events for the women because they requested that as part of their women's advisory board. And so I said, what can I do? They said, we want more events. I'm like, so my daughter said, Mom, I wouldn't take that too seriously. You're asking a bunch of people if they want free food and free alcohol. Of course, they're going to say yes, right? That's you have your 25-year-old to give you that.
That's where her mind
right?
is.
Yeah.
Right.
She's like, don't be too flattered by that, Mom. It's not like a great insight. And so, anyway, but we are doing these monthly events and we are building community and it's a blast. So yesterday, actually, I had 18 women here. We had a chef, we had an Asian cooking demonstration, and these women are starting to carpool together to the events. They're offering all kinds of community and support to each other. So one of them just retired and clearly she's really struggling with it because she's totally type A, and all the other women were helping her. And so my point in all of this, to take a step back, is first of all, the way you ask yourself is, what is my unfair competitive advantage? Are you an engineer? Are you really active in your place of worship? Are you a volunteer at the local pet shelter and you have a whole network around that, right? So what is your unfair competitive advantage? And said another way, what do you really enjoy, right? Who do you enjoy serving? And that goes back to that whole why question, right? So the why leads into the target market. And for me, it was it was women, and not because like, oh, it's so obvious you're a woman, so, right? It did naturally develop to that. And my mom was a widow. So there were things that I did experience growing up that makes me super compassionate to these widows, because I really get it. And so we said, okay, we're going to do this with women. Yes, I was concerned that some men and maybe some women could go to my website, see the focus on women, and say, hey, that's not my vibe. And so I really struggled with that early on. But I will tell you this, I can't say for sure who I didn't get because of my vibe, right? Because they're not going to raise their hand and say, yes, we're not going with you because of your vibe. So I can't say for sure who I didn't get, but I can tell you that my instincts tell me that this has been a net win from a business development standpoint. Can't say for sure. Maybe I lost a $50 million guy that I don't even know exists. Anything's possible. But I will tell you, the way we're developing business with the women, the retention, the loyalty, the referrals that are coming in, the size of these women coming in, and our ability to close them because we specialize in them. My closes are so much easier because I can walk in and say, this is our specialty. This is what we do. And I win way more often than not. And so, and by the way, I'm having a lot of fun, and we're good at it because this is a big part of what we're doing now. So we talk about that a lot in the workshop, and I wholeheartedly encourage people to consider what that could look like. And one other question or one other point to make here is it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. If you decide to develop a niche like Delta pilots, right? You don't go and fire all your existing clients. And if somebody's a non-Delta pilot and they come to you, you're not like, absolutely not, right? Although you could be like that, but it's more of, hey, this is what we're passionate about. This is what we're really good with. Your existing clients, they already love you. So it's not like they're going to leave. Okay. They understand. They're business people. They're smart people, right? They understand what you're doing. They respect what you're doing. You still love them. They'll still love you. Now you're going to have the Delta pilots coming on board. And then the newer people coming on board, they're going to see, oh yeah, she specializes in Delta pilots. But if you word things appropriately, you can position them in a way that doesn't necessarily repel if you don't want to repel. So that's how I would say it.
Yeah, right. And also, I just wanted to comment on the power of building community among your client base is, it's something that not everybody goes for or wants, but if you do and you pursue it, we've talked enough to know that how powerful it is for anybody to develop community around your client base. It's kind of an extra, it's kind of like icing on the cake, really.
I love it. It makes me feel so good about what I do as an advisor. It's really powerful.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll be back again. This program starts July 11th, and we'll be having these live stream updates between now and then. So Debbie, thanks for being with us, and everybody else out there. Thanks, and keep looking for the other updates. And look, take 4 days out of your summer, July 11th, 18th, 25th, and August 1st. You won't regret it one bit. So
3
sign
hours.
up.
Yeah, 3
hours. 3
hours.
hours each day, 3 hours each day over a 4-week period.
And it's recorded. So if you can't make that day,
Yes,
you can watch the recording or do that with your team.
Yep. Excellent. All right, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, folks. Stay safe.